I'm going to speak on another issue in regards to generational curses, and that's about knowledge and education. There are a lot of us that were raised in a certain mindset that you reach certain milestones at a certain age and you're expected to know certain things at that age. And some of us, it just didn't happen. You figure by the time you reach 18, 21 years old, you're grown, and all of a sudden you just wake up on the day of your birthday and know everything there is to know about life because you were conditioned to believe that in some way, form, or fashion. Then you get out into the real world and realize the way that you were programmed. A lot of people that you deal with don't have a clue about how you were programmed and don't care. Then you have issues trying to adapt, especially if you're leaving the area that you were raised up in and wind up in a totally different situation. You have to get used to things. When they did studies on substance abuse, they noticed that the substance abuse, a lot of people will take on substance abuse between the ages of 12 and 25 would usually be the onset of a lot of substance abusers. Those are developmental years. So at some point during that time, they were faced some kind of trauma or some kind of adjustment problem and was not taught how to cope with it, so the drugs were an escape. I'm not saying that's all the cases, because there are some cases where people just go somewhere, they try something for the first time and like the way it feels. But the majority of the situations where you're dealing with people with serious substance abuse problems is because they're trying to escape something. They're trying to avoid something. How many times on payday have you heard people say at the time clock, "Oh, I can't wait to go so-and-so so I can forget"? Forget what? What is it in your life you need to forget? Who in your life are you trying to forget? And the only thing you wind up doing is you spend money on it. You turn around and you get high, and when the high comes down, unless you got money to continuously keep it going, you're going to feel worse than you did before, but you got the same problem staring you in the face. So how does that help you? I can speak about this because I lived that life. And then right before you know it, you look up and the years have passed. You're looking like God knows what. You don't recognize yourself. You're a zombie. And then you got family members. You messed up your family and everything else. Just because at one instance where you wanted to forget about everything, instead of just dealing with the issue, you wanted to run away from it. But it's not your fault because you grew up in an environment where everybody else did the same thing. So you didn't know that that was wrong. That's one issue. Another issue in regards to knowledge, you have people in your family that automatically assume that once you start having children, you don't have to learn anything anymore. There are a lot of parents right now, no matter how old they were when they started having children, they figure, okay, I'm in the parental role, so I'm the one that the child is going to come to, so I know everything. There are a lot of parents right now who refuse to admit that they don't know something. They would rather tell their child a bunch of lies and have that child head in the wrong direction than admit that they don't know anything. And that can be damaging. And you tell me you don't know anybody like that. Oh, we figure, well, by the time they start having children, you're not the know-all, be-all. Life is growth and change. You're constantly learning. But a lot of people figure just because they bring a life into this world, they know everything about everything, and there's no sense of trying to learn anything. So they're going to take the limited knowledge that they do have and give it to their child and say, here, go in the world. Because that's the way they were taught. And that's the way their mothers were taught. And their grandmothers and their great-grandmothers. They were all taught that way. You got to do the best you can with what you got, but you've got to understand, too, just because you're in a parental role does not mean the learning stops. If anything, you start learning more. And when the next generation's coming up and your children want to be exposed to different things and learn different things, here you are, you're trying to stifle their development because you don't want them exposed to anything different than what you're used to. Yeah, that's a real smart thing to do. And then that child started to develop some resistance because at some point or another they're going to realize they have to go out in the world and deal with the people that are different. So they develop a resentment toward the parent, thinking that they're stifling, holding them back. See how these problems just build because of a lack of knowledge? It's not the end all be all once you bring a life into this world. You've moved on to another stage of life, but you haven't stopped learning. You haven't stopped developing. And then when that child gets grown and start to have children, all of a sudden you're in a decline. Just because you're a grandparent. Now, I don't have anything against anybody give themselves a nickname instead of saying grandmother and grandfather. If they don't like those words and they want to give themselves a cute little name, that's fine. But, don't do it because you don't want to admit to the fact that you're a grandparent. Don't do that. Because it is what it is. Your child had a child, a kid, you have you're a grandparent. But don't assume because once that happens that you need to stop growing and developing. Because some parents are cool until the grandparents come into the picture and all of a sudden they become this know-all, see-all, sitting up on a hill somewhere and all waiting for everybody to come to them asking for advice and everything else. They're like Buddha or Confucius or something like that. And that's not the way it is at all. As long as you're on this earth every single day, you're going to learn something. But see, if you don't have that mindset and you're training your kids to be the same way, how do you think they're going to teach their kids? The same way. And then when you have a little bit more time on your hand, you look back on everything and all of a sudden you want to tell your children, well, you know what, we need to do this as a family, we need to do this as a family because, this is not right. If once you do identify that it's not right, because some of you don't. This is why you have generations of families that are broken, generations of families that have financial struggles because they refuse to grow in knowledge. You refuse to grow in knowledge because you're going by from what you was taught and what you saw and never questioned it. See, when I was little, I remember one day my father told me to do something, and I asked him why. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I wasn't allowed to ask why. That was worse than saying a curse word. It would have been easier if I had just said a profane word. I probably would have got a less brutal punishment. But the fact that I asked why, and then he didn't even answer. He got upset and had a fit because I said why. Things were different back in my day. I get that. But you think about it. Nowadays, you have some grown folks that act just like that. When somebody asks them why they do things, they get an attitude. Just like my father used to do. Eventually, he got over it. But there are people that are that way right now. If you don't know why you do things and it's questionable, then damn it, don't do it. Because somebody's going to come along and question why you do what you do. But it's just that there's this curse going down where you feel, okay, well, grandma did it, mama did it. No matter how maladjusted it is, no matter how damaging it is, no matter how negative it is, just because mama and grandmama and granddaddy and great-granddaddy and everything, just because they did it, no matter how rotten it is, you turn around and do it because it's a family. You turn around and cloud that as a family tradition. It's a tradition of all right. It's a tradition of maladjusted people. And at some point or another, somebody's got to step outside of that and say, you know what, this is not right because I'm tired of having misfortune in my life and I'm tired of just being stuck like this. So I'm just saying, I'm not telling people to hate their families, but I mean, generational curses are real. And if you are a mother who struggled and you bring in children into the world and they struggled and didn't want to advance themselves because you didn't advance yourself and your mama didn't advance yourself, and then the children turn around and start having children and they don't want to advance themselves, it's just a whole bunch of people that is left behind struggling. Do you want that? You got to ask yourself these questions. Now change the dynamic. Stop putting yourself in a position of being a statistic. You want 3 generations of your family to be a statistic? That's not much of a legacy if you ask me. So I just wanted to put that out there because even though we're in sensitive times right now, it seems like these generational curses are still prevailing. They still have power. And it's got to stop, and it's got to stop right now. And it starts with you. Just saying.